The Grappling Hour is brought to you by Luda athletic support items created by grapplers for grapplers. Fire Grub Meal Prep. Meal prep done right.
This is it, because I put it up on my...
Hold on real quick, Lachlan. I don't want to spoil the news of you who are watching right now. Welcome. It is, 5:40 on Best Coast time here in Los Angeles, but it is, 10:40 over in Melbourne, Australia, where our guest is today. You know him from his thousands of DVDs and probably number of not just instructionals but interviews he has available over on the internet. I know he has been very helpful to my half guard, even though he doesn't know that, but now he does. He's straight off of a huge win over in Asia, where he won his third time going to ADCC. It is an impressive feat. We've wanted to interview this man for some time, and we were finally able to make it happen today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Lachlan Giles. Lachlan, how are you doing, sir?
Very good, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Not a problem. Can I make feel, and you can tell me if you think this is wrong or anything, but I feel like if you put together like 5 or 6 really hot fire instructionals, you should just get an automatic ticket to ADCC. Do you feel like that's something that's the way it's supposed to be?
Yeah, possibly. I do think it's a different skill to be a good teacher and a competitor sometimes, though, as well. But yeah, thank you for the kind words on the instruction.
It's stupid when we're sitting there and we think like, oh, okay, well, this person's getting an invite, this person's getting an invite. And it really is a game of The Bachelor. You're waiting for your rose to see if you're going to get to go to the big game. And you've been there before. And I always get weirded out when I see somebody like who you go, they don't have a ticket. Like, they got to do the earn thing. So that's just my opinion there.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy now that I actually won the ticket, I'm happy I did it that way. An invite would have been awesome, but to earn it that way, I think it feels pretty good to do it that way and get more experience under that rule set, because there's not many competitions with ADCC rules. Mm-hmm. So it's nice to get to go through that process as a lead up to the main event, actually. Yeah.
Bless you for saying that. I still feel like you're one of those guys that you're just kind of like, okay, so if you could do me a favor, like give people the context as to what happened in Asia, because not only did you have to punch your own ticket there, but we were concerned, like, is that going to happen? Are you even going to get the opportunity to do so?
Yeah, there's normally 2 trials for ADCC per region. So there's usually 2 North American, 2 Brazilian, 2 European, and 2 Asia Oceanian trials. Mm-hmm. And the first trials were supposed to be in Kazakhstan, which is actually where it was 2 years ago as well. That's where I won the trials 2 years ago. So this was meant to be in Kazakhstan again. Mm-hmm. And so we booked our tickets to go to Kazakhstan. Obviously had a big preparation in the lead up to that. And then I think I was flying out the next day. I went to the cinema to see a movie, and just as I was about to walk into the movie, like I just read something saying ADCC trials are cancelled. So I walked into the cinema, and then I pretty much, after about 10 minutes, I just walked out. Like, I was just in such a bad mood. And then, but then we kind of, so basically we were supposed to fly out the next day. So like our tickets were booked and everything. So I said, well, and I'd actually turned down a Polaris matchup for the ADCC trials. I said I'd rather get to ADCC. To me, that's like my main goal is to try to do well in ADCC. So I thought I definitely wanted to do the trials. So that was cancelled. But we flew there. So decided to fly there anyway because we heard, like, they sent an email saying there might be one ticket available, but they didn't really give us any information about who would, like, this is just like throughout, like just one possible ticket. They didn't really give us much information about how we could go about trying to win that ticket or what it was based on, and that was coming from the event organizers, not directly through ADCC, so we weren't really sure what was going on there. And so anyway, a bunch of us flew there, and I ended up, while I was over there, Ross Nichols had to pull out of his Polaris fight, so I ended up getting a call up from Polaris last minute to see if I could go on that, and I said, okay, well, we don't really know what's happening with this ADCC. Like, we knew that the trials were cancelled, that was 100% sure, but I didn't know if there was even a chance I could get a ticket or not. So I decided to go to fly out to Polaris to compete in that. And then after that, it turned out that they were giving one ticket to the winner of the open weight division if they looked impressive. Hold
on. I need something here. Yeah. If they looked impressive, like, I
think so. To be honest, as I said, things weren't exactly clear what was happening, and by the time I left, I still didn't know. It was only after I left to England for Polaris that they kind of gave a little more information.
It stresses me out just hearing, like, oh, okay, because the whole point is, why do a trials? You know what I mean? Like, to get there, and then all of a sudden you win the trials, and they're like, well, your princess is in another castle, and you go, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a pretty frustrating experience, but oh well, I got my ticket now, so that's
right. But I want to make sure that people understand that exactly the context of, it did happen. That's stressful. There's the possibility of not going to our Olympics that kind of dangles over your head. So then it becomes, okay, cool. So how you were able to then, do what? So how exactly did that play out for you after that?
So I mean, I competed on Polaris. Actually, I lost that match against Muncher, and then then I just basically went back home and started preparing for the next trials, which I think I'm not sure, but I think it was cancelled because they felt that it wasn't being promoted enough, like almost because there weren't enough entrants. And I don't know if there was. I don't really know actually, so I probably shouldn't speculate. But I think they felt it wasn't promoted enough, so they might not have had the exact talent they wanted to enter those trials in Kazakhstan. It was interesting. I mean, to me, the same people I would consider the toughest fighters that had to fight in Asia were still registered for the Kazakhstan trial. So for me, like, there would have been less competitors, but it still would have been as hard of a division to win, I think, maybe in the end.
All right. Well, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about this because I want to talk a little bit about your run that you did that qualified you through, and that was just over this weekend. So again, thank you for making the time so quickly. Especially that's the whole thing when you start to plan and try to set up an interview is you look over there and you go, when will you not be dead? Is usually the best way that we like to put that. I want to go ahead. We just got a question here before we transition. I think this is a good question to kind of icebreaker us off. Lloyd Cooper says, can you give me tips on how to beat Ross after your Grapple Fest fight?
After? Oh, yeah. After I fight him. Well, I've got to try and beat him first. And then if I do, or even if I lose, I'll probably know more about what not to do. So, yeah.
Fair enough.
Lloyd's great.
Lloyd,
That's good.
we will hook you up with a special episode just for you, sir. So let's do this
That's
because
for people listening. Lloyd has I think Lloyd, the week after I fight Ross, he has a super fight with Ross on. I can't remember what it's on, but yeah. So
I
that's
just
pretty
want
funny.
to point this out, guys. I know we have a comment section that will say whatever they think in their head, but Lloyd, this isn't us doing a private for you. And Lloyd's gonna be like, "Hey, I got a few questions about half guard. Can we go over that as well? When you get your underhook, where do you go next?" But Lloyd is very pleased with that. So I want to ask this because I want to walk you through your day. So tell us what the situation was like once you got over there to Asia for the trials this weekend. How long does that flight take?
Yeah.
How quickly are you out there before the trials? Are you getting there straight there? Because I'm only
Yeah.
used to trials out here on the West Coast and
Yeah.
vaguely the East Coast in the States.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always an interesting one, a tough one for me, like when to fly out before a comp, because like I think probably to feel good and adjusted to a time zone, there's not really a big difference in Japan to Australia, so that the time zone is not too bad. But like I kind of feel like if I fly to the States or to England or wherever, for example, I feel like you probably need a full week before your sleeping habits are normal, and you're feeling good in terms of that. But there's also like I don't love training at different gyms. Like I'd rather train with my own students because I know how hard. I know they're not going to injure me. I know how hard they're going to go. When you go to like a new gym, you don't know anyone, and you have to roll with someone like 2 days before you compete. It's either really light and not really what you want, or it's like way too hard and risking injury from that. I find it's sometimes it's the right pace, but yeah, it can be quite tough like that. This one was quite good actually because we had 14 people from our gym, Absolute in Melbourne, flying over for it, so we could actually train together when we were there. So I got there on the Thursday, and the competition was Sunday, so I had about 3 days to recover. Obviously, you've got to think about weight as well and not putting on too much, getting too bloated from the flight too, which can, I don't know. My legs tend to swell up from flights for some reason. Probably some horrible disease.
I just
Yeah,
always wonder that because, I mean, especially if you're a name too. Like if you're somebody that people recognize in competition, you can never tell how hard or not hard people will go.
yeah,
That especially that close to a tournament, because the way I always like to think of it is, for you it might just be training. For that person, it might be an opportunity to train with you. So
yeah,
there's not really a consistent way that goes all the way through. I know this on a very small level because I'm not you. But when I
yeah,
show up to a gym, people go, "Hey, it's that idiot who talks to people." And then, I tell people I get one of two responses. The first response is, I'll be like, "Hi, my name's Raph. I have a podcast." And they'll be like, "Oh, hey, I know who you are." And I was like, "Oh, okay, great." The second response is, "I know who you are."
yeah,
And I go, "Oh, yeah, they're going to try and rip my head off." All right, well, that's cool. No big deal. That's
yeah,
usually my telltale sign. But I can only think of how that's supposed to be when you need to both count on your training to get you in shape and get those
yeah,
last pounds, and at the same point, work and finesse the techniques that you're trying to work on. That's going to take you to the next step.
yeah. Um, yeah, so we got there. We had a training session on the Friday, I think. Saturday I actually had a seminar, and then Sunday was the competition. I it was an interesting feeling because it's my third time winning the trials, but the last two times I won the first trials. Like there's usually the two trials that we get, and the last two times I'd won the first one, which I always felt like I had a second chance. Like if I lost that, I could always try again, and whereas this one I was like, okay, this is my one chance. It was a different feeling because the previous times I'd always won that first ticket, and yeah, it was definitely a lot more. I wouldn't say I was as nervous because it was a weird thing. I was kind of nervous, but not. I've been working a very specific game plan for this, and like I was trying to, usually when you get nervous before a match, you kind of try to run through anything that could go right and what could go wrong. And I didn't really see too many things. Like I just knew exactly where I wanted to go. There wasn't some areas like, oh, what if they do this? I just knew exactly where the fights were gonna be played out. So I was pretty happy with my preparation and my mindset leading up to it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the day because you boringly won by heel hook each time except for one at the trials. So way to go there. Uh, I mean, the nicest part about this is you get swept into this really nice conversation about leg locks. And so it is something to see you pull that off so consistently, especially when people kind of know that's part of your milieu. One thing I do want to ask though is you've said this on other shows, and I wanted to get more of your thoughts on it, which is leg lockers are nice, but the most dangerous leg lockers are those who have an all around game. That
Yeah.
they're able to go ahead and pick and choose their spots. Those are the people who really seem to be the most consistent at doing that. Is that becoming harder with more and more people becoming so interested in leg lock now? Or, like, what are your thoughts on how the game is evolving? Especially you get such a sampling of going to different spots
Yeah.
regionally and how that must go.
Um, yeah. Yes and no. I kind of feel like sometimes the, to an extent, I feel like to be honest, my personal experience is there's not that many elite level leg lockers out there.
Hmm.
I think there's a lot of people that train leg locks, but there's not too many that are like an elite level.
Hmm.
And when I go with someone who is an elite level, it's very hard to get them. Or it's kind of like you either start drifting away from the leg locks, like as in like you're both escaping,
Hmm.
or you're both like catching each other, and you're kind of too deep in it. It depends how they're playing the game. If they're very good at escaping it, then you're probably going to disengage. If they're good at attacking, then you're going to have a bit of a showdown as to who gets it. I kind of feel like a lot of people are becoming more aware of the game, but once you start learning the basic defenses and how to do it, that also starts to become predictable to the advanced leg locker. So you start to then, they learn like the correct way to move to hide the heel or like to try to escape, but actually in doing so, you can see that coming and you can try to counter that pretty well. So it's only when they start developing a much deeper understanding that it gets even more difficult to heel hook them. Yeah, so I sometimes think that it's like that they get almost easier to catch, and then as they get more experience, it becomes more difficult.
Of course, and part of the reason I ask that is just because, again, and I mean, I'm joking when I say this, but it's like you look there and there's 3 inside heel hooks that you were able to finish with over the weekend, and
Yeah,
like, it's weird because with you would expect that as part of your game, at least if you're an opponent, but it clearly was hard to stop. So, do you mind talking us through some of those matches and how they went? Because was this streamed? Because I think I was reading about it via carrier pigeon rather than any broadcaster watching it.
they filmed it in Japan. So they had like I think there will be a DVD. They usually release a DVD after of the Japan trials. I think. Or so, yeah, it's available for purchase. I know the previous ones are. I never actually had to do the Japan trials before.
Like it's already
Yeah,
happened. I already know. Like I'm reading the results. I read that you heel hook 3 people.
yeah.
Just show me a highlight. I don't need to buy a DVD off of that.
We had someone from our gym that was streaming for like all the absolute guys and girls their fights for back home. Yeah, so do you want to go play by play of the matches?
You know
Sort
what?
of to an
Yes,
extent.
I would love
Yeah.
to. I mean, most people don't ever say that. They just kind of give a round of about. But I know that you're very cerebral about your process. I would love to hear you take me through that.
I will take you through some of it. There are some things I'm doing at the moment that I was quite glad it wasn't a streamed event for
No.
because there's a little ace I've got on my up my sleeves for ADCC. So,
Fair enough. We'll
all
refrain from getting too specific, but you can tell us whatever you want. Because honestly, like, I literally have the end of the joke but not the setup. So I literally
Yeah.
just have you being like, well, you won by heel hook. The story you make up right now could be imaginary because I haven't seen it, and I'd be like, sure.
Yeah. All right. So the first match, uh, my strategy was to pull guard in the non-final matches because you get penalized in the final for pulling guard. So my strategy was to pull guard and try to get to the legs. The first guy was quite blocky, kind of always trying to push my face away from his legs. But I got an entry that I've been working on actually, which was great, which got me to the leg. Um, and actually, I think the first time he kind of like ran away from it, and I came up for a single leg, and we ran out of bounds. So we reset. I pulled guard again. Uh, got to the other leg, which is my preferred leg to go for, with a very similar setup. And on that one, I was able to catch the heel. That one was an interesting one actually because I got the heel hook, and it pretty much immediately popped, and the guy tapped, and then I still was holding the grip, and I looked up at the ref, and the ref has basically looked at me and gone like, "Keep going," like as if like not to stop. And then the guy started to move again, so I was like, "Okay." So I started to put it on again, and the guy tapped like more, I guess, more obviously. Um, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway,
Okay, that's
it's interesting because like before I went out for that was my first match, but another Australian was saying that he got a heel hook on someone, the guy tapped, and then he stopped, and then the ref said keep going, and he ended up losing that match. So
what kind of sadistic refs are they getting over in Asia? Be like, keep going. No, I want to see a clean break here. Yeah, that's
it's
the good stuff.
yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah. Anyway, so but I didn't like the guy tapped very quickly as soon as I
Yeah.
started to so I didn't do any further damage to him. So that was the first match. The second match, actually, the guy that I fought in the second match had won his first two matches by heel hook. An Australian actually. I'm not sure. I think he's from Sydney. Um, and so I was kind of watching, and I was watching his first two matches. I'm like, oh, okay, should I go for the leg lock game or should I go for my conventional game? And I thought, no, I think my leg locks will be all right. And so he jumped on. He tried. He actually, I pulled guard, and he tried to jump for my leg, but my knee was already free, and then that just let me cinch up. As he went for mine, I got the angle to get his, and I got that one pretty quick. That would have been a good 30-second match, I think. The third one was against Iwazaki, he's really good. He's a bronze medalist at Worlds, I think, last year. And I knew he doesn't have a leg lock game, but he would know. I knew he would know my game, and everyone told me he was like really good at like he doesn't. He's not a very active competitor in that he tends to block and try to slow down and stall, and he pretty much stayed on his knees. Anytime I would go for his leg, he would push me away. So I started doing a lot of upper body attacks, arm locks, going for triangles and so on. But he's like a real thick, stocky guy. So he was able to defend all of them until I jumped on from guard, came up for a guillotine. I locked that in. He tried to roll out. I followed him, and then I swept him on top with the guillotine, and I got my 2 points. And then, because I thought I knew the ADCC rules well, but there's always a thing in it. So I got my 2 points for the guillotine. I still had it. And because the rule in ADCC is if you go for a submission from on top and you end up on the bottom, it's not considered a sweep because you initiated the movement, if that makes sense. So if you sit down for an arm bar or something or a leg lock from on top and your opponent gets on top, that's not considered a sweep. They shouldn't get points for that because you went for the submission.
Yeah,
That's the ADCC rules.
I sometimes get a little confused on this. I don't know if this is something that you guys see on your trials, but when I religiously watch our East and West Coast trials out here, especially the East Coast, there was a moment where I didn't see them award points. Like they were very, very cautious about awarding those points. So we're talking like some of these guys didn't get their points in my brain for at least 30 seconds after they had established position or moved somewhere. And I just can't help but put myself in that situation and think like I would be freaking out. I would be looking at them being like, I don't know if you get this, ref. This guard pass took me a long time. I need, if you could do me the solid and just give me those points, I'd be really better right now. So I can only imagine what that's like if you're working on a submission and you go, yeah, no, all right, well, go fuck myself. Cool.
Nah, I think that's like, I mean, when I first started doing ADCC comps, I just kind of assumed that it was IBJJF, but a little bit different. But it's actually not. It's a different rule set. And now that I understand it, it makes a lot more sense. I asked the refs about this one afterwards, actually, because, I had the guillotine, and I basically, from what had happened in the match, I said, okay, well, if I keep this guillotine, sit back to my guard, he's not going to pass, and I'm going to win by the two. I had my 2 points. Like from what I had felt, I didn't think he was aggressively trying to pass my guard. I didn't think that was going to happen, so I thought that would consolidate it. Whereas if I tried to stay on top, it's possible he could work for a sweep. So I basically went back to my guard with the guillotine and then held on to it for a bit and then let go with about a minute to go in my guard. But he got awarded 2 points for that, which I found out afterwards. Apparently, if you go for the submission from on bottom and you use that to get on top, but it's the same submission, then it's considered a reversal. Whereas if I had to let go and gone for a new submission, it would have been not points.
Yeah,
anyway, I didn't.
Still very confused by this. I mean, you're explaining it very well. This is not your problem. It's just, it's getting close in my brain to a game show where it's like, well, if you look both ways, then you can go behind door number 1 and there may be points there. And if you end up there, then you get the option to win a showcase showdown. I'm like, I really have to sub this guy or else I'm not going to win.
Yeah. I mean, in the end, like, you're going to play the game. Whatever the points are, you're going to play the game to try and win it.
But the nice part is I've heard you spoke so well of saying you love the ADCC rule set. So, like, this is your preferred rule set, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely for training anyway. There's some things that I personally would do a little differently to the ADCC rules if I had to run a comp, but in terms of how you have to train for an ADCC competition, like the rules make it so you have to learn how to wrestle, you have to learn leg locks, you have to learn how to pass guard, you have to learn sweeps, like taking the back. Like you kind of need all of the skills to be good in ADCC, whereas in IBJJF, for example, you can just ignore the wrestling part. You could say, I'm not going to learn how to wrestle at all, and you can still probably have a good chance of winning. But if you do that in ADCC, people will game you and you will lose because of your lack of wrestling, as could have happened in this match if I hadn't trained wrestling.
Well, before we continue on, I do have to press you forward because any quasi-good journalist would probably have to do this. You said that it's your preferred rule set, but there were some things that you would adjust. What are those things you would adjust?
Okay. So personally, I think it can be a bit too hard to score points in ADCC. So, for a takedown, for example, you have to put them on their back for 3 seconds, which if you looked at that in wrestling, that's basically you have to pin them. And pinning in wrestling is very hard to do. And so if therefore you if someone was taking me down and I decided to turtle and then fight off from turtle, and unless they take if I turtle, unless they fully get my back, if I end up on my bottom again, it's not considered a takedown. It's more of a back escape. So it's pretty tough to score points in that regard. So I would like to, I'd probably like to see it like any sort of top control is considered a takedown. So if you did a takedown and they ended up in turtle, that being 2 points. And then the other thing I'd probably change is I don't like that in the final it's a -1 for pulling guard. I prefer just if they had the same thing all the way out. Because what that does is, like, if your plan is to try to take someone down, like if your plan is to try and do a takedown on someone, then there's no point doing it while you can't score points for it.
Yep.
So you're basically just going to pretend for the whole first half. You pretend that you're wrestling, uh, you know, block, fake, and then you wait till the point starts. So it's basically you're gonna like it almost I think encourages people to stall out a bit on the feet until points start, and then they're gonna shoot. Because there's no point doing it while there's no reward for it while they
Yeah.
could potentially choke you. Yeah. So I'd like to see it just being you can do whatever you want for the first half, and then the second half there's points. I
Okay.
like that personally, but yeah,
That works for me. And again, I mean, like, whenever it's ADCC trials time for us over here, whenever we get some of our guys ready for their tournaments and whatnot, it's always like some strange moment where you're like, and everything matters now, go.
yeah,
So it's like, it's always, I, I always feel like, I'm usually the guy that will enforce that like half moment. And I just always know it's kind of batshit when I look at the guys and be like, "Hey, you better try now." Like,
yeah,
you assholes, you get it together, and you almost have to program your brain to feel those exact moments, like to feel that
yeah.
exact time, and I think that's part of the preparation there. So, okay, so the is this your semifinal goes to referee's decision, you get that, and now you're going into your finals. What does that experience feel like?
Yeah, so the final was against a guy that I fought 2 years ago and actually won by heel hook then. So I figured he would have been preparing. I guess that's the hard thing because I'd won the trials the last two times. I expected people to be sort of game planning against me a fair bit. And so in that one, my game plan was to actually, basically, if you would genuinely attempt to try to take someone down, and you happen to pull guard after that, like the takedown fails, then you don't lose the 1 point. But if you just sit to guard, you lose the
Right.
point. So my plan was to try to take him down, and like if I tried and failed, then I would end up pulling guard. He's from Kazakhstan, obviously, pretty good wrestling country. I'm pretty sure everyone grows up in high school or primary school, probably learning to wrestle. Um, and so, but yeah, so I'm actually managed to get some. Had like one good shot. I got onto a single leg, but he managed to spin out of that, and then I got onto another single leg. Tried to chase him down, and he kind of like. I think I held onto it for a few seconds as I tried to chase him down, and I figured that was enough to try to pull after that, and I didn't get penalised, which was good. So then I got to my guard, and I got to um, my leg locking position reasonably quick and found the heel hook, and that was it.
That's nice. And again, I mean, that's got to be a nice sense of validation, especially since the internet crowned you the guy on Flow Grappling's meaningless poll that should get the ticket. So, I mean, here's the nice part. This is what I do appreciate about the poll because I felt bad when I saw that
Yeah,
poll go up. My immediate thought is, I'm not voting on this. And people are asking me, they're like, well, why? And I go, because it doesn't matter. And sure as shit, you get some of these people who think it does matter.
hmm
And I tell people, I go, it just makes me feel bad for you guys to be in that moment to just go, hey, cool, I mean, vote for me. Nobody wants to lose a vote race. That'd be
yeah,
nice. But it's when that expectation meets the reality, which is, people want to see you go, but then you still earn that ticket yourself. That does feel
yeah,
nice, I'm sure, to
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. No, it's a really good feeling,
what was
especially
your
since Liv qualified as well, my wife. So I thought I better I better make sure I get that.
would it be awkward dinners, if you did
Yeah,
qualify and she did, and she's just sitting there, be like, "Well, I have to get ready for ADCC. You can eat
yeah,
whatever you want." I mean,
yeah,
those of us
exactly.
who are going and champions.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oh, very good.
How difficult is that though to prepare for both of you guys competing at the same time? Is it just something that it helps with the training because you guys both understand each other and how unique that situation is, or is it difficult because is there ever the possibility where you could be competing at the same time?
No, I think it's mostly beneficial because we're both going to be working on similar things. The training structure is going to be geared quite similarly. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it would suck. It's very possible that during the event, we've got 5 people from Absolute competing actually, so very possible that we're on at the same time. Um, and I might not be able to get out there and coach everyone, but that's so be it. In the end, having a coach in your corner is nice, but you should know what your game plan is anyway.
I mean, you're
Like
you though, so I
you let,
don't.
you let yeah, like even if it's not your main coach, like let's say Liv was on at the same time as me, we would both have someone there telling us what the time is and
Fair.
giving us general basic information. But in the end, like we shouldn't be in a Liv shouldn't be in a situation where I have to say like, oh, you grab the ankle here and do this and that and get the heel hook. She should know that and be able to feel that. Yeah.
What an independent family you're raising over there. I'll just tell you this because maybe you're not thinking the same way I do.
Yeah.
If someone had the option to say, Raf, Lachlan could be in your corner or he could not, but you know what you're supposed to do, I'd be like, can he please be in my corner? That'd be very helpful to me. So I understand it maybe at an elite level, you're just kind of like, nah, you got this yourself. But for the rest of us, we would be very, very receptive to being like, no, he's good. I'll have him there. Thank you.
Actually, it was interesting for Liv because Liv won the trials in Europe. She's Polish originally, and she I was up late in Australia. I think it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was calling her up in between matches and giving her advice and watching her opponents' matches and so on. So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure I'm not out of the ballpark here. And the thing
Yeah,
is that, in watching what you've done and hearing the way you do talk, you've mentioned you're a tape guy, you're somebody who likes to be a student of that. And you do have that reputation as being somebody who is not just consistently studying, but is an asset in that way. So it's really hard for me because I love studying tape, and I know that to my teammates, I'm always like, I don't really help you, but I know that I like talking about the system, or I like talking about it in a way that sometimes is helpful, even though I'm like, nah, I'm not. It's all you guys. It's always like having that extra viewpoint or somebody else analyzing other people's games is something that is hyper beneficial. I just wanted to bring this up. Chris Thompson just chimed in and said,
all right,
tell
yeah,
him I've booked him a triple room with Isaac and Justin in Liverpool for Grapple Fest, as I thought he would really enjoy that.
thanks, Chris. He's trying to stir me up, but yeah,
Okay.
Tell him appreciate. I'm sure he can hear me. Thanks, Chris. That's very nice of you.
Now, again, I really want to emphasize this because, again, did not see it, don't understand exactly what happened here, but I saw the clip that you put up where you said you were happy to work your wrestling, and you talked a little bit about that. I wanted to ask this, because it is ADCC, you do see so much wrestling in there. Like, how much wrestling do you guys get to work on? Because one of the consistent claims I get from people who I interact from, Australia all the time is just when you say, hey, wrestling, they're like, what's that?
Yeah.
And I know that's not as big over there. So how is it to work on that where you are?
We definitely don't have like the same level of wrestlers that you have in the USA. I've got I got 3 like what I would say are high level wrestlers that I've trained with. One's an Olympian, one's an Iranian national champion, and one's a Commonwealth Games competitor as well. So they're all different weights, but like this is freestyle wrestling, obviously. But that's enough. It's more than enough for me. Like they all kick my ass, but it's to have them. And, I do private lessons. I try to get. I've been trying to get around 5 sessions in a week of wrestling training. Just because I know that it's an area. Well, to be honest, like for ADCC, I feel like I'm basically mostly working 2 areas that I think most people are not that good at, and that is leg locks and wrestling. Most people in the jiu-jitsu scene. Um, and if they're, I think if my strategy was to try to go against, I don't know, let's say a Lucas Lepre and try to pass his guard, take his back, and choke him, he's he's dealing with that every day. But how many high level leg lockers is he dealing with every day? How many like high level? I'm not a high level wrestler, but could I catch up and potentially be a better wrestler than Lucas? Probably easier than learning how to pass his guard and take his back. So I'm trying to take an approach of working the areas that I think most people have holes in.
It's a fair strategy. I have to ask this because, again, this is not something that's new to you. Going to ADCC twice already, that's great. Does it mean anything? Like, do you celebrate? Is there anything that you do to just kind of like acknowledge the moment after you get and you win that third time?
Eat good food. You're in Japan, so yeah. But I try to do that anyway wherever I am. Yeah. So no, I just went around, had some really nice food, and may have had one beer, which is enough for me.
Well, I mean, noted party animal over here.
Yeah,
I
that's
want to
right.
make sure we keep you under control here, sir. And I guess the other thing that really becomes important to me, I'll ask this: are we giving questions? Yeah, you are. Thank you, audience. Sometimes I understand people don't understand the live element of this, but yes, you're welcome to ask questions here. I'm going to get back to this other one in a second from Brody Dylan Greco, but I did want to ask this.
What's he say? Yeah, this is a guy that trains with me, so I'm interested
Oh,
to see what.
I
Yeah.
know the caliber of folk you have, so don't worry. I will ask that question in a second, but the one I did want to ask you is, what does ADCC and winning that? What does that mean to you now?
Um, what does it mean to me? It means I get a chance to. Oh, is it winning like ADCC or the trials?
I would say now that we're talking, now that we're in the end game, if you would, you go to that. You've been to the stance twice. What does winning ADCC, the entire tournament, mean to you at this stage in your career?
I mean, if I was able to do that, that would be incredible. Like I mean, that would be the. I think, to be honest, like you always shift your goalposts. So if you had told me 10 years ago I'd win the Pan Pacific Championships, which is one of the bigger Australian tournaments, I would have said, wow, that's a pretty like I'm pretty happy with how my jiu-jitsu is going to go. And then the same thing for winning the ADCC trials, and then getting a medal at the Nogi World Championships. I would have said, yep, that's enough. But you always, once you do that, you go, okay, well, let's see how far I can take it. So I guess that's it. I just want to see, I'm doing everything I can to put myself in the best spot to try to win ADCC. We'll see how far I can actually go. But I mean, I'd be obviously over the moon if I could do it.
Because I mean, it's so weird, I mean, now you get down to that list of 16, and being at the Olympics of our sport, if you would, it's a great honor, I'm sure, but it's like that consistent chase means something to everybody else. Everybody has a different interpretation of what that does for them in their career, and for me, it's difficult to comprehend it in one way, but then also understand where it meets into your own life or career. Because let's look at what you've already done so far. I mean, obviously, a very solid black belt. You've made great marks with a number of different areas. I love the fact that you've also been aligned with Craig Jones, for better or worse. You've given us Craig Jones, but you also gave us Craig Jones, because I want to be very clear on this. When he goes and wins Submission Underground in 12 seconds, that's not fun. Like, great for
Yeah.
highlight reels, but I look over at him and I'll just send him a note. It's like, no one cares, Craig. Okay, just listen, dude. Give us at least a minute if you could. So anyway, but you have all these things that like speak in your way, and the fact that you've already carved out this nice niche as somebody who has put out quality DVDs. So I always like to get a sense of what that ADCC win would mean, considering you do have a nice legacy already kind of carved out. Do you kind of understand? Can you see it
Yeah,
in that way?
yeah. I mean, it's not like I guess like it would be awesome, but it's not like a make or break
Sure.
thing for me. Like I think more and more my focus will be, especially in the next few years, will be focusing more on already doing that, and we're already trying to build a really good team. But at some point, my own career will as a competitor will finish, and I'll be focusing pretty much 100% then on my team. It is hard when you're trying to compete yourself and help your students as well, just in terms of where you put your energy and your time, because it drains you a lot, your own training, like it basically a lot of the year I'm walking around there. I have to walk upstairs. I'm like, oh, that seems pretty tiring, because I'm so exhausted from the training. So to be able to put as much energy as I want to into the team as well can be difficult.
Well,
So
you've also put the nice observation of saying that Danaher essentially becomes this overseer, and having that person can be a great asset of somebody who's not necessarily competing and can focus in on their students.
okay.
So I very much see that as something that I could easily see you sliding into in the
Yeah.
future. Okay, cool. Here's the question that Brody had. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Brody's question was, ask him about Raptor rules. My favorite rule set idea. What are Raptor rules? Because that's obviously the alias that has been ascribed to you, but what are they?
I think that's what Dan Strauss called them. Um, I've got to remember what I said now. So I like the idea, actually, if I had to make a tournament, it would be I would like to see no points for takedowns or sweeps. So essentially, you only get points if you get good position, or obviously there's submissions as well. But like, so if you get mount, side control, or the back, I think that would then encourage people to work takedowns, because it gets you into a good top position, which means you might be closer to getting the mount or the back, as opposed to potentially pulling guard. But you could also have a strategy to pull guard if you feel like your guard attacks for getting towards the back, for example, are really good. But I think even if your strategy was to pull guard, you would get really good grips from standing, and you'd see some better stand-up exchanges, because you'd want to like pull guard with really nice grips. It wouldn't be a race to butt scoot to the ground as quick as possible. So I think it would solve a lot of the problems in the IBJJF format. And I just think the whole thing of like, if I choose to sit to guard, it's no points, but if you put me there, then it is points. Like, we haven't really decided guard is a good or a bad position. Whereas I think if you just made it a neutral position, then it would solve a lot of problems. Unfortunately, you'd probably end up with a lot of referees' decisions then, which might not solve too many problems. But yeah.
I mean, I just always tell people, if it looks like your ref is trying to penalize you for pulling guard, just be like, well, that's racist, and just see how it works. You know what I mean? Like, toss it out there and just see what happens. Yeah, no, I remembered you pitching this over to Dan. I watched that interview, and the nice part about it was, I like the fact that Dan was listening to you and just goes, yeah, it's a good idea. I think I'm going to steal it. Nah, I'm too lazy. But it sounds like a good idea.
He's a funny guy.
He is funny. And you guys had a very nice interview, so that was actually fun to do. Anytime I'm doing research, I try to listen in and I try to get an idea of what people are asking. One thing I have not really heard you talk about, which I am fascinated, because I've touched on this a little bit. Just from start to finish, how long does it take for you to map out a DVD set? Because I want to be very clear with people. When I saw like your half guard kind of, it was like a seminar that you were doing, right?
Yeah.
And that you turned that into a DVD. I wouldn't expect that to be one of, like, when you think instructional, you think us being like, hey guys, okay, cool, welcome back, here's my uke, he looks tired, whoa, this is crazy. Like, when you see it like that, but to see it in practice and like you're taking the seminar with them. I cannot tell you how many things that I have gotten from that, or that I've been trying to use in my game as of recently. But from start to finish, like how long does it take you to conceptualize and make a DVD?
Um, well, I mean, I mean, first is the 17 years of jiu-jitsu I've been doing to to get to learn the skills that I'm teaching. I think it's a good three 3 month process. I think. If I let's say my most recent one, the guard passing um, anthology. Um, so basically, I will map out, like I try to write down everything I want to show and try to then put it into like a way that I think is the best way to deliver that information. Like, 'cause it's got to all make sense. You've got like you know, hundreds of things that you want to teach, but how do we actually categorize it in the right way so that people understand it and it's not just a ball of information that you're throwing at them. So I try to categorize it well like that, and then I will then film myself rolling, trying to use the techniques that I'm showing, and I try to look, for things that I do that are different to what I think I like. Sometimes usually like if you teach an armbar, you usually teach the same details as someone taught you the armbar, for example, but then when you actually look at it, sometimes you've made some modifications that you didn't even realize that deal with some of the problems that you'll encounter when you go for the armbar, and you might not be aware of that. So I tend to, some of these things I'm already aware of now because I teach a lot, but I feel myself rolling, or when I am rolling, I'm paying attention to what I'm doing, and I try to see if it is the same way I plan to deliver it, and anything that's different, then I adjust that to what I'm actually doing as opposed to what I thought I was doing. And then I film it, and then for this one, so for the most recent one, I filmed it, and then I gave my like half finalized copy to some of my students, and I said, like, watch it, try it out, tell me any problems you're having in implementing the techniques. And then any issues they had, they'll be like, oh, okay, I haven't actually addressed that particular area. I'd come back and I'd film that, and I'd add it into that section. So, yeah.
That's fascinating. I like the fact, I'm a marketing guy as well for my big kid job. So there's a large part of me that loves the fact that you have your own research team, that you're like, hey kids, come here, shut up. You're all going to work. If I'm making a DV, you guys are making a DV. So everybody go practice this. And now if you don't do it well, that means I got to fix something. So you guys fix it. I love that, dude. That's amazing Q research that you could be doing on that. When you do, though, that, like, you put together so many now, and one of the things I do appreciate is I get excited when I see that you're about to put something out, because for those of us who are just waiting for things to like appear, you know what I mean? Like, especially from BJJ fanatics, they've done a very good job of being like, you need to know this. And I'm like, I do. Well, if I don't know this, then everybody's going to know Danaher's system, and then I'm going to be all screwed. So yeah, send that to me. When you say that it takes you about a good 3 months to conceptualize and work it, is it hard to potentially just be focusing on that? Does that then carry into your tournament? Does it affect it at all when you are competing? Because you are basically committing to that system. And is there a value in being like, well, now I gotta go win this in fucking that way? I was gonna go heel hook everybody, but now I got a half guard series, so I better be using that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's a tough question to answer. I think in the end, like, I'm always working something new, or like I'm always trying to add to my game. Anyway, so it kind of like whatever I'm doing at the time is usually what I'm going to do in competition. It is hard. Like, I've got the second part of my part two of my guard passing one to start filming soon, but I am trying to prepare for ADCC as well, and it's hard when I'm not like immersed in that. To be honest, that's not the main thing I'm working on. My guard passing in the lead up to ADCC. While I'm not immersed in that realm, it's hard for me to go like, yep, these are definitely like the ideas that I want to get out in my instructional. So it's a little bit tough in terms of that, and definitely when you spend a lot of time teaching and like honing in your skills in an area, that often starts to show up in your game, which is usually good. But yeah, if you've got a specific game plan in mind for an upcoming competition, then that could potentially be a problem.
Yeah, because I mean, the nice part is, for those of us, it's a resource. But then, if you have an opponent who's just like, wait, did I pull Lachlan? Hold on, I gotta order it.
Oh,
Real
yeah.
quick. Let me see what's going on here. What's even? Ooh, good. Half guard, past that, no problem. I just.
Actually, that's why it's an interesting one, because for ADCC I'll be playing a different guard to what you would have seen me play before. So
This is a great teaser. This is perfect. This is exactly the stuff interviews are made of. This is why we get excited. You're like, whoa, whoa, whoa! I'm gonna premiere a new guard at ADCC. You guys just wait.
I'm not saying I made the guard up, but it's a different style that to me leads exactly to where I want to go. So I've been doing some research on how to get to the position I want to get to, and then I think I've got the game plan set, and so
It's beautiful. I like hearing that. Now, here's somebody you posted this as a review on your Instagram, and this is from a lady named, I believe, Margot, and she said Lachlan is probably pioneering a figure of a new beginning of my deep interest in the half guard. He's also a great comedian. Ask him to tell you a joke. Now I'm a comedian. Are you going to tell me? Do you have a joke? Because
ask me to tell you a joke. Yeah, nothing that I would with Margot's sense of humor. Nothing that I'd say on camera.
Okay, you don't have to tell Margaret. Why are people saying that are you doing more jokes? Because here's the good news. I'll tell you this much. The thing I do like about the Australians that we've seen come out of your region, everybody from your side of the earth has seemed to be pretty good at being self-effacing. Like, I don't really see too much that upsets you guys. You guys are pretty chill, and to somebody who makes jokes, it makes us feel pretty good because we know, like, oh, hey, they won't get too offended, and there is that. So is that something, like, why is somebody putting that about you? Is that just because you're not making jokes in class? Like, I'm just concerned.
It's probably that. No, Margot stayed with us for a good month or two, I think, at our house when we wrote that. So I'm not sure where she thought I was a good comedian from, but most people would probably tell you I'm not.
I mean, again, I still can appreciate those who have a good sense of humor. Speaking of which, I mean, we very simply addressed Craig Jones. I guess true or false for you, and you can go one way or another. True or false? Hashtag fuck Craig Jones? Because
Sure.
True. Okay. Because I don't understand why we're saying this as a thing. Like, when I've interviewed Craig, I've just been like, you started your own hashtag hate?
Yeah. Well, actually, I should tell you first. We've got a Japanese student who's down training with us at the moment, and he he said to us the other day, he said, I'm not sure, like, why you guys are so disrespectful to Craig Jones. He didn't get that it was a joke. Like, why do you train with him if you hate him so much? No. So, well, that actually came about because, well, if you ever roll with him, you'll know. Yeah, fuck Craig Jones.
Okay.
If you roll with him, he has this tendency to put these submissions on you that shouldn't work. Mm-hmm. Like, physically, he'll grab your arm and like put it behind your back in some weird way from inside your closed guard or something ridiculous like that. Shouldn't work, but it does. And yeah, and then he'll, he'll just look at you and laugh. So yeah, and he does that to everyone. So
It's
Greg Jones.
it's so strange to see that as a thing. And I mean, Charles Cowling says Lockie is an under the radar funny guy. I mean, I've seen you be self effacing and funny enough, and I figure if anybody's put up with Craig Jones, that you have to have a semi balance of humor to you. But I mean, the weird part is I've heard as much about Craig. I've heard, and I think I've heard him say that I will find the most embarrassing way to submit you and do that. That seems to be what is fun to him as his form of enjoyment. And half the time I'm always like, I think Craig is just some sort of savant because he always just seems so aloof and so goofy that of course he's going to be the guy who's like, hey, does your arm go like this? Well, it does now.
The perfect example is I can't remember it's for Polaris or it might be for Polaris that he was filming some promo video. And I think I was shooting a takedown on him and he picked me up to do like a tombstone. Like literally picked me up, almost dropped me on my head and then like stopped just before I landed on my head. And I was like, yeah, another thing that shouldn't work that did and was on film.
Well, I mean, the nice part about that is you've been very nice and self-effacing in saying that you're more of a peer to him. But I know that when I have talked with him, he's spoken very, very high regard of you and your teaching and the influence that you've had. So I do know that is a good thing. So I hope that you were able to see that on your side as well, because it is weird when you guys are both active competitors, I'm sure, to have that kind of dynamic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I see it as like, as we're both. I kind of see this with any of the high level guys that we train with. It's not, it no longer becomes so much of a coach and a student, as we're all helping each other and trying to identify areas that each of us could, weaknesses in our games that we can try to exploit on each other, and then giving each other ideas on how to solve those problems. So really, at a certain point, you stop becoming from that perspective. Obviously, there's coaching in terms of like kind of like what we're saying, like on what a Danaher would do, I think, which is another level to it, where you can sit back and watch, and you're identifying the areas that someone is lacking. And I definitely try to do that with my students too, but it's definitely more of a discussion because they'll help me as much as I'll help them.
And that's pretty good. If you could do one thing though in passing, because I do wonder this. Do you ever like look at Craig and just be like, could you be here? Could you come train with us, you asshole? You going off everywhere. One of the things I always like to pass on to him is, could you not be at a waterfall? Seems like every goddamn day I look on his Instagram story, it's just like, oh mate, I'm under a waterfall, and I'm like, no one cares, dude.
he's somewhere like that right now. I think he's with
No, he's with the idiot crew over, I think it was in Puerto Rico or somewhere, somewhere exotic, where it's just all of them being like, oh look, it's me helicopter, and I'm like, I'm not interested, dude.
Yeah, he's it's all right. Good on him.
I just wonder because I get very. I think this happens at a lot of gyms where when you do have a great training partner and they're like, "Hey, I'm gonna go somewhere else," and then you literally go up to them and you're like, "No, you're not. What do you think you're doing? You can't leave. I don't allow you to leave." And if for somebody like him, he is traveling so much and he is going all these places and he is taking advantage of his moment. But I just always think like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Dick! Hey, we need you too."
It's really good when he's here. But I think like because he's traveling around and training so much, he'll often learn some new stuff or pick up some new skills or try a bunch of different stuff at some different gyms, and then he'll come back and show us what he's learnt as well. So it's really good actually that he's doing that. Maybe not being under waterfalls though. Like, he could do less of that.
He's just I don't know, man. He's a silly human being that is so good at jiu-jitsu, and yet it's just like half the time I look at him and I'm like, it's happening to you. You know what I mean? Like I look at him and I go, you were gifted this great gift and you've really done a good job of making it there. but one day somebody's gonna figure out you're a fraud, and he just laughs, and I'm like, you can't ruffle his feathers. He's always like, oh, you got me, and I'm like, that's not that hard. But I mean, I love the fact that he's such a good sport about it. Lachlan, I do, I know we're starting to come up on an hour here. I do want to ask a couple questions. One of which is this: you did mention a little bit about Absolute, and you've talked about this team. You've talked about this great. I mean, the fact that they would be so good in helping you get these DVDs ready and these instructionals ready. That's got to be so cool. What has changed the most, and what have you learned the most in terms of your experience of running this gym? Because you've mentioned that you don't even have a homegrown black belt yet, but that's just because you guys have only been open for so many years.
We don't have a homegrown purple belt yet.
Right.
We've only been open 4 years now. What was the question again?
All right. Well, I'm gonna like. You know what the best part is? You heard exactly the part that you needed to address, which was whoa, black belt. Let's slow down here, buddy. We're working on the purple belt. Also, what's your question?
Yeah.
The question is, what have you learned the most in terms of owning and operating a gym?
Learned the most, like in terms of just generally, or like for my jiu-jitsu skills, or like
This is an open-ended question, my friend. There are no wrong answers, but if you give me a wrong answer, I'm going to ask a better one.
What have I learned the most from running a gym? I mean, probably jiu-jitsu from teaching. I think like my if you like obviously it's weird because I'm kind of probably mostly known as a coach now, but I've only been coaching for at least full time for 4 years. Prior to that, it was like 1 or 2 classes a week for about a year. I think you learn a lot more about your own jiu-jitsu when you have to teach, and especially the fundamentals side of it. Like I have to teach fundamentals, but I usually most of the clips that I put on my YouTube channel are from the fundamentals. Most of them are from the fundamentals class, and I'm always trying to go back and revisit and compare what I'm doing now and teach when I teach fundamentals, I teach the fundamental thing that I'm doing now. Not how I learned it 5 years ago or 10 years ago as a fundamental, but like if I'm in this scenario, what's my first go-to if I have to take the back, for example, from here. But just having to, like being a coach, you actually have to stop and analyze that as opposed to just doing whatever you feel, which I think you tend to do more if you're not coaching. You just kind of, like you can do things, but you might not be exactly aware of what you're doing, at least to the same extent. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad answer. It was okay. I mean, like if we're saying you stuck the landing, which is good. So we'll give that one a nice chalk up to a win. There was one kind of, I guess, question I had that I was kind of curious about, and I wanted to see if you had an answer for, which is, you're a very active competitor, and I think that you've been on the radar of so many people, and I think that you continue to have great matches. But I was wondering if there was any in particular that kind of stick out to you that you feel like if somebody's never seen you compete, what's like one of the first matches that you tell them, like, hey, go watch that. That was a good one.
Good one that I've had to. One that makes me look good is against Haysam Rida, the guy that was on Quintet, because he's a lot bigger than me. So that makes me look good. So if you want to watch one, watch that.
Can I ask a follow-up? You can give me the second answer to that. Did that impair you in terms of, not impair you, but did that hinder any of the way that you had expectations for him? Because I know he has a great reputation over in Asia, but like when you see somebody wreck somebody like that at Quintet, I actually think of all people I was talking to, it was Craig, because he was asking me for updates, and he was like, "Hey man, are you watching this?" And I said, "Yeah." He's like, "How's it going against 10th Planet?" And I remembered being like, it's a rough pull, my friend.
yeah, how did I? So you're asking like how I felt approaching that
Yeah, I mean,
match?
especially because like it's one thing to have somebody that you go, hey, go up against this guy, and you go, okay, I'm not, no problems. I'm a competitor. I love getting out there. But then they go,
Yeah,
you're going against this guy who was a one man wrecking machine. You go, I mean, he can be beat, but also you have
he's
to be
yeah,
respectful to what you've seen.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, there was the am I going to get injured, and then there's because he's like someone like that. If they
Yeah,
grab a hold of something, he's a pretty explosive guy too. Like
yeah.
he could put something on pretty quick. So it was a little bit concerning that, and then the fact that I was in the middle of some town in China, and if I did get injured, what sort of treatment would I get for it? I don't know. Uh, but on the other side of it, there's also, I think like matches like that where like if I lost to him, people be like, yeah, but you're smaller. So sometimes it's easy like there's an easy excuse for that, you know. If you fight Nicky Ryan and he beats you, it's kind of like, well, I got no excuses. He's just better than me. That would be
I
the
mean,
end.
I've got, maybe you don't play this game as well as I do. I have excuses for everybody. I literally
Yeah,
will be like, well, he's a prodigy. And they'll be like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but
Okay, yeah,
you've been doing jujitsu longer. I mean, he's got
yeah,
Danaher. Like, I've
yeah,
literally come up with every nightmare scenario. Like, anytime somebody's rolling with me, I'll be like, oh, God. It's just because he's so much stronger and better technique and faster and smarter. And, man, of course he was supposed to win. Duh. It would have been embarrassing if he didn't beat me.
yeah. All right, I'll try and use that one.
Don't, Lachlan, if you ever need any excuse, just run
I'll
by him.
send it.
Just send me a note. It's very
Yeah.
easy. I've got like a little computer that I just put it into here, and I go, I've got your excuse. It's pretty easy.
All right, done.
Now you said that after we talked about that, obviously that one did make you look good. Is there a certain kind of you were kind of motioning there might be another match though? Is there something else that you feel maybe showcased your talent, or there was like a match that was a grind? Because I get curious in knowing, especially from competitors who watch so much tape. You know your work, you know where you are excited and what those matches are, but I'm always curious to hear what they are.
Yeah. Liv, is there any matches of mine? I'm asking Liv. She might
No,
remember.
I got that part. Thank you.
Edwin Najmi, maybe? Oh no, he's just a big name.
That was Edward Najmi was.
AJ is a good.
Yeah, I
He's
lost
really
that one,
good.
but yeah, yeah. Actually, I think my match with it. I had a match with AJ Agazam, and I lost. He got 2 points right at the start from a takedown, and then I spent five. What was it? So no, probably 8 or 9 minutes, like almost submitting him and almost sweeping. Like I felt like I'd never done so well, but still lost a match. So it's actually a good one to watch. But yeah, it was very frustrating actually. But I think it'd be an exciting one to watch. That was the to get into that was a semi final at Nogi Worlds.
I think I remember that
Yeah.
actually. And I mean, you will be the first person on record to ever refer to anything about AJ Agazarm as being frustrating. So I'm going to make sure that you know that.
That's right. Yeah.
He's got such a pure reputation that I'd hate for that to get out there and people
Yeah.
start to
Yeah.
get that feeling about him. Um, you know, I mean, dude, there's so much stuff that I feel you have given the community with your DVDs. I know, and I mentioned this, man. Like, it's so nice to go back where, I mean, my half guard shit. So I don't tell people that I've been learning from you because I'm like, I don't want to make you look bad. But there are definitely things that I've looked at and I've been like, no, that makes sense and that goes there. And I remembered seeing Reddit, which is a cesspool of negativity and idiots complaining about them not getting their blue belt fast enough. But they all are in agreement that a lot of them really like you, and they clued me in when they were saying, "Hey, go get this one." And I remembered reading a very nice recommendation off of it, and I went, I watched it, and I was like, "This is easy to see why people like your instructionals, and they get very excited about it."
Thank you.
You know, it wasn't a question; it was just a, "Hey, thanks, you gave me some stuff, and
Yeah,
I
no, no,
appreciate
thank you
that."
very much. Yeah.
So, Lachlan, tell me what happens next. I mean, ADCC happens in September. You come out to us out here in Los Angeles. What are the next few weeks of prep? Do you get to look outside at the sun at any point? Are you going to just be consistently in the gym? What happens next for you?
So actually, in a week and a half, I've got the Australian Wrestling Nationals, so I'm going to compete in that
What?
freestyle wrestling. Yeah. Um, so I'll go in that, and then the week after that, I'm fighting Ross Nichols on Grapple Fest. Um, in the lead up to that, I got a bunch of seminars in Ireland, the UK, and Ireland, England, and Scotland. So, um, yeah, maybe message me if you're in those regions if you want to know where they are.
Ross Nichols is a nice human being. Uh, I do want to point this out. Is there a way we can add more drama to that? Do I need to shit talk him for you to build up some more intrigue? Is that something you would be interested in?
Yeah, no, we actually, I'll build it up in saying it will be a really good match. Like we rolled together,
Mhm.
and it was a really good roll. Like if our match is anything like our roll, it's going to be a cool match.
Interesting. Okay, that is a pretty good song because I know
Yeah.
how he rolls, and I especially know he's injured. He's coming off an injury, recently.
Oh,
So
oh, okay, interesting.
how did you not know that? Didn't he have to pull out of something where he had an injury about earlier in the year?
Oh, that was when I did Polaris, maybe, or like
Yeah.
I think he had a staph infection,
Was it a staph infection?
maybe.
Oh, well, screw that then. My sources were wrong, which
Yeah.
means probably me. But okay. Well, you know what?
But
Here's the, what's
I
that?
said, what did he injure?
We'll see. Here's, you know what the nice part is? What if I got that wrong and I just set you down and now I'm putting it in your brain? See, I'm selling
Oh,
this match very well, guys.
yeah, very good.
Thank you.
No,
Well,
I think it'll be a really fun match. And people think we're the same person. So even if I lose, maybe they'll think I still won. So that's good.
yeah, there's a similarity. You know what I mean? Like the short cropped hair, I think is
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, but okay, so that's cool. So obviously, some seminars coming up, some things to do. We probably won't see another instructional until after ADCC, I'm sure. Correct?
Well, I mean, no, well, yeah, because it takes a while. Once I've finished the filming and everything, and then I have to send it out, and that takes a while because they got to do all the
I feel like
chapter lists, the
AJJ
extensive.
Fanatic should just shut down for ADCC. I hope they stockpiled and then
Yeah.
put some nuts in for storage for winter because I can't see how any of you guys could put together anything given that's what everybody's thinking about for the next 3 months. Um,
Yeah.
okay, cool.
Um, yeah, I've got something on the Grappler's Guide coming out soonish as well, which is on uh, sweep prevention. So like it's kind of like uh, there's a whole bunch of series on guard retention.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people say, the first thing you should learn in your guard is how to retain your guard and not get your guard passed. But there's nothing out there on which I think should be the same thing as well. When you get on top, is how do you stay on top and not get swept? So like when you get stuck in all the different guards, when the person gets the grips they want, how do you stay on top? So I've actually got something coming soon on the Grappler's Guide for that.
Well, you had me at sweet prevention, so it really
That's
wasn't
right. There you go.
really wasn't much more you needed to say. I was kind of like you mentioned that, and I was like, go on,
Yeah.
because I think to myself that is one of the more difficult things, and I feel like especially you give that instructional to a wrestler, I think you have some
Yeah.
problems with some of the little guys in jiu-jitsu who are like, I've had this secret all along, and they're gonna be like, nah, now I know sweep prevention.
That's right.
I just always laugh because I always feel like anytime I see somebody give a key to somebody else, I go, don't tell them that. They don't need that.
Yeah.
It's like anytime I see
Especially,
somebody who's
especially
big in
don't need it.
jiu-jitsu, well, anybody
Yeah.
who's a big size in jiu-jitsu, I go, they don't need that. No,
Yeah.
teach them the shitty jiu-jitsu, not the one that we think, because the ones they think, they're too big to think. Well, you know what? The nice part about this is, Lachlan, I've wanted to interview you for so long. I think you're an interesting human being. We didn't even really get to talk about, your beginnings of it. I would love to give you shit for thinking you were Jet Li and somehow falling into this realm. But I really wanted to commemorate your win for ADCC trials because, and I really do mean this, you do seem like somebody who's proven. I hope they don't ever have to make you do an ADCC trials ever again, because I think after the third one you should get like a little pin that's like, I did it. Just invite me next time. You know what I mean? So we're very happy that you were able to do that. Obviously, we want to tell people, remind people for seminars and for privates, please get in contact with him. But also, if you are looking to train, if you're somehow in the area, it is you have M1 Absolute.
MA1's my apparel sponsor. Absolute MMA. Yeah,
got it. I never get that straight. I just see M1 and then Absolute all in the same thing together, and I'm like, sure, if you guys say so. So to those of us in the States, it just is like, I guess it's the equivalent of being like Snickers presents My Gym, and I'm like, I don't know that.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
But
yes, Absolute MMA, and I teach out of the St Kilda branch. So.
Listen, killer. Okay, that's great stuff. Well, let me just say this, sir. We're very much looking forward to seeing you out here in the States competing. I should be there myself. Love to say hello to you when you make it on out here. But very much appreciate your time here today, sir.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back later this week with some more interviews. It's been a great day for grappling. My name is Rafa Sparza. We'll see you on the mats.